Hello, YouTube, Spotify, all my streaming platforms. So good to see you. Welcome to the Daily Show. This is not going to be your normal intro like usual, but we're bringing things a little differently for the first time on the show. Myself and of course, as you see, my buddy Russ Eden is here. Uh, we're going to give you guys something a little different and new. So this is going to be called Cardinals Talk. It's going to be a series weekly, bi-weekly. We're not really sure moving forward. We're just here to do a little something different. We are both college students, if you're new. And we got a little bit of free time during the summer to do some different things. And we both share the same love with the St. Louis Cardinals. So if you're a Cardinals fan, if you're a baseball fan, if you're a fan of just either one of us and are just, supporting each other, welcome. We appreciate you guys for being here. It means the world to us. If you could subscribe as we help moving forward with this content, we plan on doing as much as we can throughout the summer and move easily is best when school starts back up because school life is kind of hectic for both of us. So we'll see how that moves forward. But thank you guys so much and welcome to the first ever episode of Cardinals Talk. And welcome to my main man, Russ Edens. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good, my friend. Well, I mean, let's get right into it, man. Cardinals 32 and 24, 8 games over 500. Still 3 games behind the Cubs at the top of NL Central. I just kind of want to ask you real quick, man, just how you feeling about the Redbirds right now? I mean, they're looking a lot better than I kind of expected them before the season started. But what's your thoughts on the state of the Cardinals right now, man?
It's a very fun team. They're one of the funner teams or more fun teams to watch in the league, I think, right now. I've had so much fun watching them. I just moved to a new house, and at this house, I can watch Cardinal games. So I've been watching that. It's the first time in years I've been able to consistently watch those Cardinal games and not get blacked out. That's been great.
Yeah.
I watched the Orioles series this weekend, missed game one, but they're such a fun team to watch right now. Everything's clicking, and first time in a while, I saw a quote from Arenado, and he said that for the first time in a while, they're excited to come ballpark, not hoping to win, they're looking to win.
Yeah.
And I just hope my biggest concern is that the ownership and John Mozeliak aren't going to do enough at the deadline, or
Yeah.
they're gonna just last year they were 50 and 46 at the deadline first half of the season. They went 500 this way, missed the playoffs by 6 games, and we didn't see any moves. They were a good team last year and then just sort of faltered, for a couple of weeks, never got back on it. But this year they're they got off to a slow start, but May, they're 18-5, I think, since May 4th. So they've really turned it on. And it's
Yeah.
just the biggest question is, can they do it in June?
That's a big question, man. And I mean, you bring up a good point about the trade deadline and whether or not this team, yeah, and my opinion, I think we look really good. The pitching rotation has looked great over the last month. They've exceeded my expectations there. We're hitting the ball really well, which is something I expected coming in, but I wasn't sure if the pitching rotation could help back up the hitting, squad, and the offensive capabilities that we have. They're doing so. They're doing well so far. And you bring up the trade deadline, and I actually want to ask you a question about one of our players, Jordan Walker, a guy that faced a lot of criticism since he's come into the league. A lot of fans aren't sure if Jordan Walker is really ready or not to still be in the league, if he's ready or not to be a part of this program. With that trade deadline coming up, I want to ask you, how do you feel about Jordan Walker? Do you think it's time to move on? Do you think it's time to give him a little bit more time on the roster? And I asked that because he's been looking pretty nice over the last couple of weeks. He's come in clutch in the Orioles and in the Diamondback series, looking well at the bat, playing strong defensively. So what's your thoughts currently right now on Jordan Walker moving forward with the trade deadline approaching quickly?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about Jordan Walker and being hot recently. I wrote an article about him today, actually. It should be up tomorrow or so,
Hmm.
for justbaseball.com about, how much time does he have left in the Cardinal system? What's the plan for him? And I did notice he's been hot in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Since May 15th, his slug is just south of 550.
Yep.
He's creating runs. His WRC plus is, I think, like 150. My biggest issue with him right now is his BABIP is
Yeah.
556. The higher that number is, the luckier you're getting. He's getting extremely lucky. Now it's 2 weeks. It's a small sample size.
Yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
34 plate appearances. So I would like to see that number significantly lower, but the potential is there. And I don't think they're going to trade him this year. I don't. I mean, it's kind of similar to what we saw with Tyler O'Neill. They traded him a couple off seasons ago to the Red Sox. He went off for a season, and we never really saw it again. Jordan Walker was like he had a 787 OPS and 23, I think, or yes,
Yeah.
23, and we haven't seen it since. And the Cardinals have kind of messed him up. He sent down like 2 or 3 times last year, and I think they just messed with his confidence. And it's hard to regain that. It's you were the guy in the system, and the
Hmm.
question was, are they going to trade him because he's good now? You can get a lot in return for him, but you're not going to get a lot from him now. So I don't think they're going to trade him. I think they just got to let him eat.
Staying on that trade kind of topic, I want to ask you about Nolan Gorman, one of my personal favorite players of the team, but Nolan has just not been able to get it going this year. It seems like over his spell at St. Louis, he's had those like hot flashes where he heats up for a week or two and then kind of dies back down. What do you feel about Nolan Gorman? Because I think it's time to look to moving him, but at the same time, I think who can we really get that can progress our team for Nolan Gorman moving forward?
Yeah, Nolan Gorman's it's very similar to Jordan Walker. It's a former top prospect, had a really good year a few years ago, and just hasn't been able to find it since. But unlike Walker, he's not really getting everyday reps. He's coming off the bench. He's playing second base when
Hmm.
when Donnie's out in left or in the outfield. He's not getting those everyday reps. He's played in 31 games this year. I'm looking at his numbers right here on Baseball Reference, but his OPS is 589. His slug is 303, and that's just not what you're looking for from him.
Yeah.
But it's a similar situation to Walker, and the new hitting coach, Brant, is it Brent Brown
Hmm.
or Brant Brown?
It's Brent Brown.
Yeah, yeah, he's come on and he's done very good things for the team. Last year through this many games, they were 29th in runs. Now they're top 10, maybe seventh overall in runs. So
Hmm.
I think with more time with the new hitting coach, I think both Gorman and Walker can really benefit, and it just takes time for them to really find that adjustment.
Yeah. Well, we'll give you guys more content about the trade deadline and players on the roster and maybe potential players coming into the team as we move forward in a couple weeks. Coming back to the current state of the team, Cardinals are 18-5 in the last 23 games. Really looking good. One of the best teams in all of baseball. Have the best ERA in the last 3 weeks in the NL. How do you feel about the pitching rotation, man? I know Eric Fetty's looking good. Sonny Gray, Libertor, Miles Michaelis.
Yeah, there's a
It's
is
it's look really good as well. How do you feel about the pitcher rotation right now?
it's been shockingly good. Obviously, Michaelis. My thing with him is it seems like every other year he's good, and this is I guess
Yeah.
that every other year. When I was younger, it was every second year he went off.
Hmm.
You lost Flaherty a few years ago, and you replaced him with a Sonny Gray, which is paying off. An older guy is coming in, and I think Sonny Gray's had an influence on some of the younger guys. I look forward to seeing Michael McGreevy in the rotation. You have Libator, who's really gone off this year, and he's getting a full
Yeah.
chance. You send Mats to the bullpen. Um, Michaelis Fetty is leading the leagues in complete games and shutouts with one, or he's leading at least the National League with only one. So against the Nationals, which is crazy that no one's done it this far in the season. But the rotation has been shockingly good, and the numbers indicate that they're getting a little lucky with where they're doing
Hmm.
things, but the defense can back them up. They're not like a strikeout first team. They just put the ball in play, or they let the other team put the ball in play, and that's been their mentality for years now, and it's worked. It's worked very very well in the regular
Do
season.
you
That is playoffs, different story.
do you keep taking a chance with Chris Roycroft in your squad? A guy that's I think he's 26, 27, not old, not young,
Mhm.
but has relatively struggled this season. I watched Roycroft come in a lot of games and simply just come in and not take control of his pitches, not going to take control of where his defense is aligned. What do you do moving forward with Chris Roycroft in your opinion?
Well, he's only got 10 innings pitched this year. ERA is north of 7. Yeah, he's 28 years old. The ERA is 7, like I said, but his FIP is 4.2. So
Hmm.
the ERA is inflated. It's definitely inflated. And for relievers, ERA is going to be around 4. It's going to be higher than a starter because you're getting less innings typically, or it could be well lower. But in his case, I think he's pitching better than the numbers indicate. But you're right. He's just getting unlucky right now. But it's a long season. You're gonna need relievers. I mean, you could never have enough
Yeah.
depth, and at some point, he's gonna go off for a couple weeks. He's gonna allow 2 to 3 runs over a month stretch or something crazy. So when it comes to Roycroft, I think you just gotta ride the hot hand with the bullpen, and when he does get hot, you call him up and you let him have at it because you're gonna need him at some point in the season.
Yeah. Make a good point, man. I think what's been so fascinating about the Cardinals lately over these last 2 or 3 weeks is their ability to not quit, and that's something that I've loved watching this team. Like I feel like a bit of joy and spark watching this team play baseball over the last 3 weeks that I haven't felt in
Mhm.
3 years. And I think what comes with that is that these guys literally, like the Arenado quote you made earlier. They look to win now. Like they're coming in feeling confident. They're coming in feeling like they can do everything now, which is a great relief because I didn't know how I felt about that coming into this season. Now we can go look at the offense a little bit now, Russ. For you, what are some of the players that are standing out? Obviously, Brendan Donovan is playing out of his mind this season, and especially lately. I mean, one of the best players in baseball, batting over 333 right now, and it's like literally seeing every pitch as good as possible.
Mhm.
For you, how does the offense look? What is Brendan Donovan doing so well, in your opinion, that is keeping his numbers and his confidence so well up at the plate right now?
I mean, Donovan's been insane. It's a great story. He should be first team All MLB. He really should. I mean, he's getting it done. He leads the National League in hits and doubles. I mean, I couldn't tell you what he's done. I mean, he's made some adjustment, and I think it's just been reps. We've seen this
Yeah,
coming for years. He's steadily gotten better and better. A few years ago, he kind of dipped into the power game a little bit and brought
yeah,
some power to the Cardinals. And now I think he's really focused on driving the baseball, and that's worked out super, super well for him. I look at a guy like Lars Nootbaar, who a few years ago, like, should you trade him? His baseball savant numbers are all in the red. He's going to pop off. It's just a matter of when. And he's finally done it. It's something special. I mean, his current OPS is 770, which is very good. But he's getting it done. His strikeout to walk ratio is really good. He's a great leadoff hitter. Mason Wynn is not having a sophomore slump.
yeah,
You look at guys like Wynn and uh, you know, they have a bad second year, or you just chalk it up to a sophomore slump. But he's not doing that. His OPS is near 800, I think. He had
hmm
795 right now. And going back to Donovan, I just put up his baseball savant. I mean, it's full of red. I mean, he doesn't make great contact. Like the velocity is low, barrel rate, hard hits rate is all low, bat speed's incredibly low. But he barrels them and not barrel them up. I said he makes bad contact, but he squares balls up. He doesn't chase. He doesn't swing and miss. He doesn't strike out. He doesn't walk a lot, but he just
yeah,
gets it done. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it makes it's crazy. It's an anomaly. He doesn't. He's a 40 percentile for average exit velocity, but his expected batting average is in the 99% percentile. That's crazy.
yeah,
I point to Donovan, Wynn, Nootbaar. Those three guys in leadoff spot. Arenado and Wilson Contreras haven't even had good years.
yeah.
They're hovering around 700 OPS. Alec Burleson, my favorite player ever, aside from Matt Carpenter, is getting it done off, in a sort of hybrid role. He's playing everywhere, it feels like. For first base DH, he's played in the outfield. What I'm interested to see your opinion on is the catching depth between Herrera. Contreras is no longer a catcher, obviously,
Yeah.
but he's still performing well. Pazzo and Pajes are all getting it done. They've developed catching after
Yeah.
Molina. They have 4 catchers in the roster right now. What do you think about that? And then just getting it done.
It's a great question, man. I think when Yachty retired, that was kind of one of my biggest scares was how do we replace that? Because what Yachty did is basically irreplaceable, and not just his ability, defensively, but his leadership with his voice, his leadership with his actions. Wasn't the greatest batter ever, but came in clutch when it was needed. But the guys right now have really developed really well this season, and it scared me when Wilson went to first base because I thought a plethora of things. I thought he was going to struggle defensively. I thought he was also going to struggle a little worse batting, which he kind of has, but he's kind of picking it up. But the guys behind the plate, like you mentioned,
Mhm,
and I'm glad you asked me this because I was going to bring up Ivan Herrera, who's been killing it batting this year. Batting over 500 with runners in scoring position. I really right now, other than maybe Donovan, wouldn't want any other player on this team at the bat with runners in scoring position other than Herrera.
mhm.
He's really just confident, not chasing it much. Obviously has pop behind his swings as well. Ivan Herrera is looking really, really, really good for this team right now. I think batting over 350 right now. Obviously, fluctuate in and out of lineup this season, of course, but he's looking really, really polished behind the plate. Pazzo and Paez have developed a bit of grit and attitude this season that I love, and that's what's so fun about this team this year is I'm seeing just a grit and attitude and confidence that I have not seen in previous years, and that is building on I guess leadership because we've been through so much over the past years, Russ, with the front office and kind of finding a player leader. But we're seeing that within the group. Arenado obviously is not doing what we want him to do batting wise, and he's like, okay, let me go to Marmol. Hey, I think it's time for me to drop down in the order. His numbers have went up a little bit since that drop, and
Mm.
we don't need Nolan Arenado to be, what he once was, but he's come in great over the last 2 weeks when it's needed, and it's allowing guys like Herrera, Pajes, Pazzo to come in and do different things. I think Pazzo is obviously going to be a key guy for this team, and it's going to take time to develop him a little bit more, especially defensively, as well as Pajes, who's looking really good, in my opinion, behind the plate, but needs a little bit more work defensively. But that comes with guys that have not been in the league that long, that need a little bit more repetition and need reps. But I'm not worried about our catchers at all. I think they all look great and healthy, and they look really hungry to just be out there, learn more, and get better with this team behind them because now I'm seeing a little bit of veteran leadership. I'm seeing the young guys prosper to a point where now they can just focus on simply being them and getting better in their position, getting better in their game. So moving forward, it's exciting to see those three guys there because depth is needed, and you don't ever want to just have one guy like we saw Wilson last year, and he gets hurt, and then we
Mhm.
didn't really know what to do when Wilson got hurt. So I'm so grateful to see that catching position not tremendously struggle for 5, 6, 7 years after Yachty's gone because of that mound that was left when he was left. So that's a great question, man. I think that the catching position is definitely improved tremendously over the last few years since Yachty's been gone. And I think moving forward, it's only going to get better. Like you mentioned earlier with reps, but it's going to get better and better and better. And I have to give credit to the staff for doing a better job this offseason again, getting a little bit more reliable and accessible with our staff and they kind of nurturing different things that we're going to release the full potential of these players right now. So great
Yeah,
question,
and
man.
we're in that point of time where prior or former players are coming to be coaches. John
Yeah.
Jay, Scalzo,
Yeah.
Matt Holliday was in talks, didn't work out. I mean,
Hmm.
let's not get into that. But they're coming back and they're being a part
Hmm.
of the program, the team
Yeah.
that they love, they won a World Series with, and we're finally reaching that point in time. John Jay, I'm sure, has been a tremendous help for Jordan
Yeah.
Walker out and right. Daniel Scalzo, I don't even know what he does there, but I'm sure his presence is much needed in a decently young clubhouse.
Yeah, I think that is what so years ago when Albert's last year and Yachty's last year when we lose that series against the Phillies in the playoffs. I think
Mm,
that's what frustrated me so much because I knew with the totality of those two guys leaving, we were going to be losing so much just veteran leadership in the locker room, which is important. You have your manager and your coaches, but you need a leadership within your players. And I thought that was something that was going to be my huge kind of asterisk this year. Paul Goldschmidt going to New York and so many moves that I didn't know who was going to be the vocal leader for this team this year. I think a plethora of guys have stepped up in that
mhm,
totality, and I think for me, who's been my just standout so far is Lars Nootbaar. He came out the gap first game of the season, just marking his territory.
mhm.
And his numbers are really well so far. He's just bringing a bit of energy to this dugout, to this team that I think are needed. And he's taken a really big leap this year, not just in terms of of his abilities, obviously. But like I said, I've seen him just with a lot of energy. When he gets on the base and he's flopping those arms like they do now, and he's screaming to the dugout, or he's back there in the dugout, hyping up players when they get on base. I've seen Lars Newbar take that step, which is needed for every team if they want to have a chance at winning when that time comes. So
Mhm.
it's a lot of calmness and peace right now. Like, I have not been able to sit here and just say I've enjoyed watching Cardinals baseball over the last few years, but right now, uh, it feels like a bit of joy to just be able to sit back and watch this team
Mhm.
play baseball. Even when we lose, Russ, like I feel good. I'm not just like out there like,
Mhm.
okay, we have no chance today. This team has no effort, they have no energy, they have no care. No, like, even when we lose, we're fighting. Even when we're down two
Right.
four in the seventh inning, we're still fighting. And we come back sometimes we don't. But I'm seeing just a lot of fight and grit from this team right now that I just simply haven't seen over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and like last night they were down 3-0 to the fifth
Yeah,
place Orioles, and
yeah,
they came back. It's really fun to watch. Let's
yeah.
talk a little about the standings real quick. Who has a higher winning percentage? The Cubs, the Dodgers. Do you know?
I want to say Cubs, if I'm not mistaken.
The Cubs have a higher winning percentage, higher
Yeah,
winning percentage than the Los Angeles Dodgers right now. It's 625 to 607, and the
I believe
Cardinals
it.
are just 3 games behind the Cubs.
Hmm.
Just 3 games after all this time, and the Cubs are, by winning percentage, a better team than the Dodgers, who spent $1 billion the past 3 years for however long it's been. It's that I mean, it's probably not that big of a deal. I don't watch Cub games or anything, but that's crazy to me that the Dodgers either aren't playing that well or the Cubs are just playing super well, and we're
I haven't
still
watched.
we're still there.
I haven't watched that much Cubbies baseball. I've been tuning in a little bit though. I mean, they've got a good squad this year. They putting a young
Mm,
talent together, and their pieces are finding. But I think, from my perspective as a Cardinals fan, I think it's exciting that the Cubs are good, and that we're
absolutely,
that we're
so
that
exciting.
we're also getting back to that thriving point that we're supposed to be at too. I mean, this is, I think. Obviously, the Yankees, Red Sox is the rivalry, but right below
Mhm,
that, in my opinion, it's Cardinals Cubs, and I think when those two teams are great and they're battling for the division every year, when they're battling for supremacy in the division and in the league, I think it's great baseball. I think it backs up for what both cities want, which are two of the great
mhm,
fan bases of all of baseball, and it's fun for me. Obviously, I don't want to see them winning, but it builds up more excitement. So when they do come to town, or when we do go to Chicago, it's like, hey, now you can't miss these games because it's
right.
two of the best teams in the league right now. So uh, Dodgers, I'm not gonna say too much about them because every time I talk about LA, they end up going back and shutting my mouth. So I'm gonna keep my thoughts and comments about LA quiet right now. But look, it's a fun time to be a baseball fan. Honestly, like I'm seeing a lot of joy from this year that I haven't felt in a while, and obviously that comes with my team being better. But I
Mhm.
think there's a fluidity of teams that are emerging this year as well that have not been able to say they've been well over the last few years, which makes it fun baseball in general.
Yeah, and with the Dodgers, they got, the greatest player ever in Tommy Edman.
Mhm.
Shohei Ohtani's nothing compared to Tommy Edman, right? No, but
No, sure.
obviously Ohtani's great. But man, I wish we had Edman still. That I don't know where he'd play with Donovan doing everything he's doing. But man, yeah, he's special. I love Tommy
Yeah,
Edman. But yeah, Dodgers obviously best team in baseball, one of the best teams in baseball, suffering a couple losses recently. But the Cubs, awesome, and the Brewers, they've taken a step back this year. They've been
yeah,
the top of the table for a while in the NL Central, and they've taken a step back. They're right around 500 right now, but they're 6.5 games back right now. I think it's going to be a three-horse race in the long run, but right now it's just Cubs Cardinals, and the Cardinals have that third wild card spot. The Giants, who are a couple games back, or they're 1 game back right now. The Cardinals for that third spot. They've lost. Cardinals have spiked right now, and they got some cushion. It's right now. It's really just them and the Giants. The Brewers, the Reds are right there. Diamondbacks in Atlanta, they're all within 6 games. Going into
yeah.
June, so they're all going to compete. But I mean, they put themselves in a great spot. They I would not want to be John Mozeliak right now in my last year. Actually, I would be right now because all you got to do is go add a good player. Make a good trade. You add 2 players. Fans are going to be happy. It didn't work. If it doesn't work out, you tried. You did something, and we
Yeah,
haven't done anything in
yeah,
years. So just give us something. And I'm sure fans, you lose first round of the playoffs. You made the playoffs, and you're supposed to be the worst team in the NL
yeah.
Central. I think you have to go for it. You know, it, June is going to be an absolutely huge month. If they don't do well in June, it's what we're supposed to do. But if they do well, we're turning the table on the rest of the league. And make it hard for Mozeliak in his final year. What's he going to do?
Yeah, you make a good point, man. I think my expectations were kind of moderate coming into this season. And yeah, I love the point that you just made that, man, we make the playoffs. I'm good. I think that I really didn't know how talented this team could be this year. There were just so many question marks. What would Arenado do with all the trade speculations in the offseason? How would Wilson Contreras look, moving to first base? How would Mason Wynn come in this season because he, put up good numbers obviously last year, but you kind of felt like he was a little flat last year and was kind of guessing a lot on his pitches and where would he move forward in terms of improvement. There were so many questions this year, and then of course with the pitching rotation that you didn't know about, and then you go through the whole offseason and you make one move and it really wasn't even a move, and that's been just the tiring rampage of the Cardinals fan base over the last few years, which is why you've seen attendance numbers drop so much, is not the fact that, it's just been poor baseball at times, but the fact that ownership has simply not tried to re-gauge what is one of the most valuable franchises in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's the annoying part is, you sit back and, we'll look back in 20 years and we'll think, man, how did we have Goldie at first base and Arenado in third base and not even, make it to, the NLCS. Like that will be the part of why didn't the front office try something a little bit differently over these last few years? And again, you made a great point, which I may, kind of equip in this title of this is June is so huge for this team. Like I can't emphasize that enough, not just what they do playing, but what does Mosaic do? Is he able to get? I just want a move. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
specifically where that move is going to go to benefit this team. I wouldn't be mad at getting another pitcher. I think, how do we move another piece? Maybe an offense isn't out of the ordinary, but I'm okay with right now how this team offensively is looking. So a pitching is probably the go-to for this team right now, just to get a little bit more depth. When times get rough, when the season gets harder and things go a little bit more deep, you got to have as much rotation and depth in that pitching squad as possible. So June is going to be huge, man. I think moving forward it's now time to take accountability. You don't want to go out there in your last year of your John Jose like and again not do anything because this past off season, the years before it's we're fine with our team or we have enough pitchers and that's not been the
Yeah.
case. So now it's time to change that capability. So I'm excited to see what the next month and a half for this team looks like. Hopefully there is a move that's going to be made, and for everyone listening, we will come back at some point with the episode. Kind of detailing that a little bit more specifically about our trade thoughts, who we would like to see, who we think the team may make a move for, et cetera, et cetera. So June's going to be huge for this team, and it really is.
Yeah, and if you're the Cardinals, and you go to bed on, May 31st, you want to wake up and see May 32nd on the calendar. It's been that kind of month. You're 18-5.
Yeah,
You don't want the month to end, but it's gonna end. It's gonna be June 1st, and you have to continue your good play. You can't just
yeah,
say, oh well, we were good in May, and we can go the rest of the way and be fine. It's a different month, and that's just the way it is in baseball. It varies month to month. You can be great one
yeah,
month and be awful the next. Like last year, the Mets were awful in May.
yeah,
I think my favorite baseball personality, Chris Rose, declared them dead in May, and they found a way to just bounce back. So they wrote off that month of May, and they came back, went all the way to NLCS, only lost to the eventual World Series champions. So June comes around, you got to step it up. You can't take a step back. These
yeah.
games only get more meaningful with every game you play. You're closer and closer to 162. Every game gets a little more meaningful. So
Better.
you have to accelerate. And last year, at the deadline, they got Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham. They
Mhm.
traded. It was a three-way deal. with Tommy Edman on the Dodgers. Okay, that's fine. I was like, okay, we're making moves, but we just gave up Tommy Edman for two guys, and one of them we DFA'd like 2 weeks later. I think it was 2 weeks later. Tommy Edman did not finish the year with the St. Louis Cardinals, and then Eric Fetty. Thank God for him. He's been
Yeah.
surprisingly good this year, and I just hope that he continues it for the remainder of his contract. Or if he does half of what he's doing now, I'll be happy with decently happy with him because I was
Yeah.
not expecting what he's doing now.
Yeah, me either. And I think, what's I think for me quite comforting is just the performance of the team because moving forward, I hope that Mosele looks at Ali Marmol's performance this year and just says, okay, I have a little bit more confidence in what you can do. So
Mhm.
let me go out and now help you continue building that confidence and continue building a good run of baseball. Because Marmol, he's come in this season with a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I mean,
Mhm.
nobody's really been happy with the way the team has gone since he's arrived. His first year, we make the playoffs, but does not go the way that it should have or we wanted it to go. So he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders this year, and I think that he, did a really good job in offseason bringing in a little bit of more of a open and accessible staff that can kind of critique things and do things differently that has allowed this team to be a little bit better this year. But I'm really proud of the progression he's made. Just as a manager because it's not easy when you're with this club. It's win or die basically. When you're winning, obviously everyone's going to be with you, but when you're losing in the history that this team, this franchise has, fans are going to go against you, and they're not going to be scared to
Mhm.
showcase that. Whether that's social media, not showing up to the games, et cetera, et cetera. But he's done a fantastic job, and I really hope that uh, he's able to keep that up in June, and that the front office will repay him for that with helping some type of formation with some type of move uh before the trade deadline happens, man.
Yeah, I hope they do something better than last year. I don't mind the Tommy Edman. It was on the IL all year long. I understand the
Yeah.
move, but man, that one hurts. And I
It
feel like we've
does.
said that a lot. We've said that a lot. With traded away Sandy Alcantara 5 years ago, or how long ago it
Yeah.
was, Randy Rosarena, and those guys have flamed out, if you will. But man, when they were good, they were really good, and we think if we would have held on to them a little longer, maybe that Goldschmidt and Arenado window stays open a little bit longer.
Yeah, before we kind of wrap up, man, the trades are always kind of weird with this team. I feel like every time we trade a player or someone goes somewhere else, they just like immediately get better. Like,
Yeah.
I'm happy for Goldie in New York, but it's sickening to watch him, be so good this year with the Yankees, and then last year I mean, just last year I watched Goldie just not look like the Paul Goldtip I've ever seen in my
Mhm.
life. I remember when Harrison Bader left, he had a little hot streak, and he was really hot. Even Tyler O'Neill, I know he's kind of fading away a little bit now, but
Mhm.
he's played some really good baseball over the last few years since he's been gone.
Luke
So
Voigt.
Luke Voigt, like the Cardinals
Yeah.
trade hunt is very dark and for us, but hopefully that gets turned around. I think that right now we have a consistent role and leadership with this team right now that I'm very fond of. And it's fun time, like I said, it's a fun time to be watching this team right now. So, school's out now. I hope, fans get out there to Busch Stadium and support this team because they need it, they deserve it. And like the quote you made earlier about from Arenado was huge that, they feed off of it, and they feed
Mhm.
off the, Busch Stadium being packed. And I hope we're able to do that more moving forward. I hope to get to a few games this summer. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, man, this has been fun for episode one. I appreciate you, man. Anything else you want to join me
Yeah,
with?
absolutely. Cardinals took 2 out of 3 from the Orioles. Well, lost the first game, won the second 2. They just remain hot. Swept the Diamondbacks, needed that. Diamondbacks were right behind them in the wild card standings. Man,
Hmm.
it's a fun time. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Tigers. Tigers best team in baseball right now. Yeah, it's a good time. They're rolling, and just it's a good time to start a podcast about St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, and with the 2023 World Series champions, Texas Rangers coming up, Cardinals look to stay hot. Rangers have not been playing their best baseball so far, but it's still going to be a dogfight. I think the Cardinals have a good chance to win another series, what they've been doing well, but it's going to be fun. And thank you guys for tuning in, man. I enjoyed the crap out of this. This was fun. Something new for me and something new to the show. Like I said, if you're new, please subscribe as we move forward. Russ and I hope to continue doing this as much as possible in the future. But this is fun. And if you have any, comments, if you want to, have a question that you guys want us to talk or answer about, if you have anything you want to just maybe see a segment about, please let us know. Leave a comment and let us know. So thank you guys so much for the episode number one of Cardinals Talk. Thank you guys. See you soon.